Back. So I have my images opened up in Photoshop. Now I'm going to go over how to do basic adjustments using Adobe Photoshop. Okay, which image do I want to work on? I think I'll keep it simple and just work on this one right now because it's the most kind of minimalist image we have. Okay, if you've never used Photoshop before, you have all this stuff over here. You have all this stuff over here. It's pretty intimidating, but just stay focused on what I'm telling you about today and ignore a lot of the other stuff for now, okay? I am by no means a Photoshop wizard. I do not know half of what this program is capable of. I use it for very simple things, and that works for me. I'm a pretty simple photographer. Uh, I'm not super, as much as I love photography, technology is not for me. Okay, let's talk about basic adjustments. Over here, you'll see properties and adjustments. You know what? Actually, scratch that. Before we do adjustments, I want to talk about image formatting. Okay, we'll get to this in just a second. So, how big is your image? Okay, let's take a look. We're gonna go to image size. Okay, here in image, you can do a lot of the format adjustments. You can adjust the canvas size, the image size. You can rotate. Okay, 180 degrees, 90 degrees clockwise, 90 degrees counterclockwise, flip horizontal, flip vertical, whichever way you need to rotate it. This is the way to do it. We got mode, okay, up here at the top. This is how you would change it if you wanted to discard all the color information and switch it to grayscale. You would do that. Grayscale is basically black and white. You can change the color profile here. You can change the bit depth. You really don't need to change the bit depth right now. I'm not exactly sure what. That's just the density of the image, I think, and you can leave it right at 16. Where was I? Oh, mode. Okay. I'm not sure why you would switch it over to CMYK color. I think it's good as it is in RGB, unless you wanted to do something very specific. But for the sake of this class, you don't really need to go there. So leave it up here in RGB color, unless you wanted to put it into grayscale, which is black and white. Then you would click this button right here. Okay. Image size, that's a good one to take a look at. Okay, so that will tell us the dimensions of this file as is. Okay, these are set to inches right here, so we know that the width is 12.8 by height of 19.2 inches. So that's a pretty big photo. Okay, that's the default size that my camera shoots in. It has a full frame sensor, which means it makes larger files. So if you want to adjust this at all and you are trying to make a print, or this is just going on your Instagram or website and it doesn't need to be as big, you can change the height, width, and resolution. Okay, 300 is good if you're going to make a print. You want that resolution to be at least 300. It's a good place to keep it. If it's going online or Instagram or Facebook or any other type of online platform, you can set it for 75. That is large enough for a screen display. But for printing and high-res images, don't go below 300. Okay, that's just kind of the standard resolution. Okay, I'm gonna leave the size alone right now, but if you wanted to change it, say I wanted to make it like half as big, I just, instead of 6.8, or 12.8, I do 6, and that automatically adjusts. So now it's 6 by 9. So that keeps this lock and chain here, keeps the ratio. It's not gonna. I could set it for 100, and it automatically calculates, well, the height needs to be 150 in order to keep that ratio. But we're just going to cancel because we're not changing the image size right now. Okay. So a little bit about that. Okay, image formation. We can rotate. We can. Just a minute. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to talk about up here before we make basic adjustments. Okay, basic adjustments. We have over here properties and adjustments, and then you have all these little icons. Okay, brightness, contrast, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue, saturation, color balance, black and white, photo filter, channel mixer, color lookup, invert, posterize, threshold. Okay, I don't even know what these are. I barely ever use them. Selective color, gradient map. The ones I pretty much use are this top row right here. Those are all your basic things, okay? You want to spend some time and figure out what these do. Like, I don't even know what this posterize or threshold, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it does. Probably does something cool if you're willing to put in the time with this program and figure it all out. But for the sake of this class, you really only need to concern yourself with these ones right here. Okay? Each time you do a new adjustment, it creates a new layer. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. Layers are very important to the whole concept of Photoshop. So let's start with brightness and contrast. Okay? Clicked on that. That's going to give us two sliders. So you got brightness. So you look at the image, it gets brighter and darker. Okay? I'm going to just do a Command Z. That'll go back to the way it was before. Contrast, increase the contrast, decrease the contrast. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way this image is right now. In fact, I don't think this image need any adjustments whatsoever. Sometimes you can take a photo and it's just perfect the way it is and you can leave it alone. But for the sake of this class and this demonstration, I'm just going to show you what certain things do. Okay, so that's brightness, contrast, okay? We're going to go back to adjustments, and now let's look at what levels is all about. Levels, if you click on levels, this graph kind of shows up down here, and there's two sliders, one at each end. We have a dark slider that controls the value of darks in the photo, and then on this side there is the white or the light slider. It controls the other side of the histogram, which is the light values. Okay. This is a great way for adjusting exposure, contrast, shadows, highlights, all in one convenient way. So let's take the dark end of the slider and increase it a little bit. You know what? I kind of like how that looks with just a bump of extra dark values. Yeah, that really brings that orange hose to life there. And then at the other end with the whites, increase that a little bit. I don't think it needs any. Maybe just a little bump just to. Okay, so I bumped the bright end up just a little bit. So if you want to see what it looked like before, just come down here and you'll see all your layers listed out from top to bottom. Okay, here's the levels that we're doing right now. Here's the brightness and contrast we just did before. And at the very bottom is the background layer, which is usually locked. You can unlock it if you want, but it usually stays locked. If you go over to this little eyeball right here where you just made the levels adjustment layer, I'll turn off that layer and see what it looks like. This is what it looked like before. So this is before, this is after. Before, after. I don't know about you all, I kind of like how it looks after with a little bit of adjustments to contrast and darks and lights. So cool. This brightness contrast layer down here, we didn't actually change anything. So if I toggle the eye on and off, it doesn't change anything because nothing happened. What I'm gonna do is just delete this extra layer here because we didn't do anything. I'm gonna drag the layer down to this trash can right here. So now we just have two layers. Let's go back to adjustments. We'll show you what curves does. Okay, curves does, I believe, the same exact thing as levels that we just did. See this graph? It's similar. Gives you this graph. There's a slider on one end, slider on the other. Okay, darks and lights. Okay, the thing that is different about this type of histogram is that there is a line And this line, you can click on a point here, okay, in this histogram. This is kind of over by the dark side, and I could go down and go up. You can do all kinds of really crazy things with this. I don't quite understand it. I was taught in school that you just create a little curve with this line by clicking on you click on a different end of the point or different end of the line, and you create a point, and you can drag up or down, creating that curve. And then you can also drag in the sliders. But see, I don't like this. I don't think we really even need to do this because we already kind of adjusted these things with the levels. I'm gonna turn that off. Yeah, I don't really want these adjustments. These adjustments I just made, you can get rid of in a few different ways. You can just do Command Z to undo it a couple times. You can drag this whole layer down into the trash and get rid of it. Or, okay, this window up here, history, this is very important. It's not always open when you launch Photoshop. So if you want to open history, you just go to window. There's all your different windows right here. Window and history, okay? History will enable you to view every single move that you've made since you opened up the image, okay? And you can go all the way back to the beginning. Say if you've been working on an image for half an hour and it's so messed up and you don't know how to get back, open up the history and jump back. You can go back a few steps, one or two, or you can go all the way back to the beginning. Okay, so I'm just going to keep it the way it was because I like the image where it's at. Let's go back to adjustments, okay? We've done brightness, contrast, levels, curves. Exposure is pretty simple. It's just got these sliders here. Exposure gets slow, nice and dark, brightens it up, boom, boom. I think the exposure in this image, let's see, bump it up just by 0.31 there. Let's do a before and after. Before, it's a little bit brighter. I guess I kind of like it a little bit on the brighter side. So I'm gonna keep this adjustment. Well done. Offset, gamma correction. That you would have to talk to somebody else about. I'm not sure what that does. See, ladies and gentlemen, while I consider myself to be an expert in photography, I'm by no means an expert in Photoshop. People, there's so much to it. Okay, so exposure, vibrance, same thing as in Lightroom, guys. You can desaturate. You can, sorry, this is the vibrance. Unvibrant, very vibrant. Command Z. And then same thing with saturation, total desaturation to totally gross and saturated. Okay, I'm pretty content with, I guess, maybe I could use a little bit more saturation. Let's check. I always check the on-off levels vibrance to see what it looked like before to make sure the change I made was actually good. Because just because you can make adjustments to images doesn't always mean you should. Okay, I like it beforehand without the saturation increase. I like it a little bit desaturated like this. Okay, back to adjustments. We got vibrance, hue and saturation, color balance, black and white. These things are important. I don't really consider myself knowledgeable about all the color correcting stuff here. What I think you can do is, okay, it's called color correcting, okay? Every image, no matter what, has some kind of color cast to it that is created by the color and temperature of the light that hits your subject and in general, like the color of the environment that you're shooting, okay? So if you really look at this photo, I think I see some magenta, like a magenta cast up here. I don't have the best eyes for this kind of thing. So you can correct these blemishes. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. Through these color tools here. Same thing with color balance. You can adjust the color of each image. Like cyan and red are on a spectrum of one another. If you increase the cyans, yep, see, you can increase the cyan or the red values, the the magenta or the green, yellow or blue. In some photos, it's very obvious. Like if you're shooting under a fluorescent light indoors, that image is gonna be sickly yellowish, greenish. Okay, this photo I'd say has a slight warmth to it from the the golden hour sunlight that I used, and then there might be some magenta up in here or some green down here that could use correcting. I'm not too sure. I'm just gonna skip it for now. If you go back to adjustments and go to curves, there's an important tool I neglected to show you. It's the white balance. Okay, or these little droppers over here. You can do a lot with these tools and curves. This little finger arrow thing, click it, and then you can select the location. Say this bright area over here, you're physically going to go over to that area, click on the up, click and hold, and then go, you can go down with it or increase the value. So same thing goes for this region. If I just want to target this region, I want to just increase the or decrease. It's a pretty handy. See, I'm pretty much just isolating different regions. And you can do the same thing with color here too. RGB. This is another way to color collect. Say there's too much of one color in your photo. So instead of doing the whole RGB spectrum, we're just going to isolate one color. We want to just isolate the blue values. And now you can just adjust the blue curve. And that's going to, if you add blue, it's going to get nice and blue. If you take blue away, it's going to get... Okay. This is beyond the scope of this basic photography class right now. I just want to let you know that this stuff is here. Okay. Get rid of that curve layer. Okay. So all these things, what we're doing right now, we're making adjustments to the entire image. Just like Camera Raw, just like Lightroom. We're not really quite yet getting into the specifics of what Photoshop is capable of. I just wanted to show you these adjustments here, how to make adjustments to the entire image. Ideally, before you bring an image into Photoshop, you've already edited it in Lightroom or Camera Raw and done all the really big adjustments. There's a few other things over here. We have a lot of tools. There's some pretty basic ones, need to know ones. This is the crop tool, okay? You can, hold on, crop. There we go. I just want to crop it down to this size right here. Double click, that's your image now. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna jump back in time history here to before I did that. Let's see, what else can we do? If you, these tools over here, if you click and hold, more options pop up. Okay, so we can crop, we can perspective crop. Let's see what that does. I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. Let's see what this just did. Yeah. Okay. That was pointless. Uh, sorry about that. We'll just go back to the regular crop tool, okay? Frame tool, we're not going to talk about this right now. We'll talk more about these in-depth tools at a later time as we get more and more familiar with the basics of Photoshop. Okay? So I'm going to take a quick break there and we're going to jump into a few other things. We'll talk more about layers and we'll talk more about some of these tools over here, some of these basic tools for making detailed edits into your photo. Okay.